Hello dear learners, in this week I am going to start discussion on the theme 3 of this course entitled Public Organization and Management. The focus of this theme 3 is on management of people in public organizations. This theme will have focus on 3 different modules, wherein module 7 is focusing on discussion on motivational theories and motivational framework and their application in the public sector organization. Module number 8 will specifically focus on public service motivation, important work related attitudes, wherein I will discuss about the role of motives, values, incentives in motivating individuals. In module 8 we will also talk about the aspects of positive organizational behavior and surviving and thriving in public service. We will conclude this particular theme with module 9, the focus of which is on effective leadership in the public organization, wherein we will focus on various theoretical frameworks on leadership. We will try to understand the meaning of leadership, various theories which are there in literature. We will also talk about some of the theoretical frameworks which are more applicable into the public organizations. During these 3 modules in the theme 3, we will have a lot of interesting case studies from the Indian public sector organizations, and we will discuss about the motivational frameworks, the application of these frameworks in the public sector context. In this particular week, we are going to start with module number 7, which is motivation in public sector organization, the concept of motivation in public sector organization. We will start discussing about the context of motivation in public organization. So the focus will be first on understanding the context of public sector organization, meaning how and why the public sector organization is distincted from the private sector organization as far as the concept of motivation is concerned, right? So we will first focus on the context of, it means the environment of the public sector organization, and we will try to see what are the various challenges associated with motivation in the public sector organization. After this understanding, we will move on to the understanding of concept of motivation, wherein we will focus on the definition of motivation in journal and the definition of motivation in work environment. We will also look into some of the measurement related issues and various measures which are available with the help of which one can measure the motivation levels among the individuals working in the organization. So when we talk about the concept of motivation, the focus will be on definition and the measurement, the different kind of concepts which are available within the literature of motivation and how researchers have tried to capture and measure the perception of motivation among individuals. We will focus on that. In this particular module, we will also review various theoretical frameworks which are there in literature. If you look at the literature and if you have read some of the literature, you will realize that the entire motivational frameworks or theories, they are broadly classified into these 3 perspectives, right? I will first of all review the need-based perspectives on motivation, right? Or in some of the texts, it is also called as content-based theories of motivation. So we will look into first of all need-based or content-based theories of motivation, and we will look into some of the interesting case studies while looking at the application of these particular frameworks in the public sector organization and among public employees. Then we will discuss about the process-based perspectives on motivation, where the focus of motivational theory has been on understanding the various processes in the organization and how they are linked with the motivation of individuals in the organization. So processes, I will talk about what kind of processes the literature talks about, and then we will continue our discussion on how processes and their applications can help organizational leaders and managers to motivate their individuals. And I will conclude this session with discussion on learning based perspectives on motivation, where we will talk about the concept of social learning and understand its application in the public sector organization, that how this particular perspective can be used by organizational members to begin the process of socialization in the organization and give the cues to the employees in the organization that what is expected and what works in the organization in terms of the behavioral conduct. So broadly the agenda of this particular module will be on understanding in depth the motivational frameworks, the definition of motivation, the measurement, and various theories which are prescribed in the literature. We'll also look into the application in the sense of whether there exist any kind of differences in public and private sector organization. So we will also look into the various aspects related to it. Let me first of all discuss the context of motivation. I will start first of all talking about how context matters or doesn't matter. If you look at the contrast between public and private sector organization in terms of motivating employees in that particular context, right? Public sector environment and motivation, if you look at, and since the beginning of the course we have been talking about the aspect of the character of public organization, or I will say characteristics of public organization. They are distinct in some or the other way from their private sector counterparts, right? So we have discussed in the first module about the distinctive character of public organization and how public sector environment is related to motivation. More specifically, in the next module, the focus of which is on public sector motivation, I will discuss about how and why the motivational aspect is different in public and private sector organizations, and how public service motivation is one of the most cited framework and the well researched topic in relation to the public sector organization, right? So when we say that public sector environment is different, if the environment of public sector is different, meaning that there are so many situational factors which makes the public organization distinct, how these factors are coming together to create some kind of challenges for the public managers to motivate employees, or they are coming together in such a way that they are somehow helping the organizational managers to motivate their individuals, right? For example, the political and institutional environments, it has a strong impact on people in the public organizations. We have been talking about this particular aspect, that the public organizations, they have lot of influence from outside, right? We have seen that, and we have also talked about this thing, that public organization, they are influenced by various external stakeholders which directly or indirectly impact their functioning. One such example is basically the political system, right, which has authority over the public sector organization, where the lot of control is there, which lies with the political system, and the institutional environment are different, right? Because they are contextualized in the public sector setting, where they are largely concerned with providing service to the public. They are distinct from their private sector part because they don't work on the principle of economic markets for outputs, which we have discussed in the first module. So it has a strong impact on people in the organization, because largely what we have seen that because the control of especially the human resource management lies with the central authority, so it leaves less of the freedom with the organizational manager to manage and motivate the people in their routine day-to-day work, right? Because they don't have much control on their incentives, their training, their promotion and career, and so on and so forth, right? So when there are different kind of political and institutional environment, it strongly impact the people in the organization and of course their management. Now what happens is, if you look at the various reforms, right, which have been asking the government's administrative systems to improve their management and performance, because whenever the aspect of government or public organization come into mind, people usually talk about inefficiencies and say there are a lot of corruption, delay, there are a lot of administrative burden, there is red tapeism and so on and so forth, right? So there is some kind of skepticism in the minds of people when they always talk about the functioning of government organization. But otherwise it would be, literature also says that government employees are the one who works really very hard, right? So these reforms, the focus of the reforms is to influence the government administrative systems, the entire machinery, to bring in certain kind of changes in the process with which they try to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of the various organizations, right? So the reforms actually has influenced the organizations to bring in change so that they start focusing on the performance related issues in the organization, start working on bringing in changes in the process which can lead to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of the organization, right? Now, the focus of these reformers who are actually influencing the public organization, they talked about that there exist the weak links between pay and performance. The relationship between pay and performance, they are not well established and quite weak, because the human resource management system, they are centrally authorized, so the pay is not related to the performance in the public sector organization. Now, because of which what happen is, since pay is not related to performance, there is no incentive or motivation for people to enhance their performance level, because they believe whatever they will do, anyhow they will get their salaries, they will get some incentives which are already been set by the central authority. There are systems, because there is lot not available with the organizational manager, with the help of which they can try to enhance the performance, because they don't have any control on how pay is linked to their performance and also the incentive. So the reformers also kind of influence the organization to address this particular thing, so that they can have more, the organizational members or leaders or managers or public managers, if we talk at, they should have more authority over deciding on how to evaluate somebody's performance, and then the pay should be an important component which can help in enhancing the performance of the people in the organization. Naturally, if the organizational leaders and managers will have more control over linking pay with the performance, the evaluation of the performance are directly linked with the pay, they have some kind of authority and freedom to channelize the efforts of people towards the performance, because then they will be able to motivate them well that their performance is directly linked with their pay, they should better improve, right? And of course, it's not only that they have to force them, they have to find some ways with the help of which they will motivate, they will create support system in the organization where their performance will be increased, and then it is related to the pay systems in the organization, right? Also, because this is a kind of a system where there is no linkage between the pay and performance, the government officials, because they are confronting these kind of problems and issues, they sought to decentralize personnel systems. So what they want is that the centralized authority should pass on some kind of the decision making authority to the public sector organization as far as the personnel system, the human resource management systems are concerned, so that it give them much more authority and control over their people in the organization, so that they can motivate them well. So you see, these are some of the factors which actually differentiate the context of public sector organizations, right? Moving on, the reasons why we're talking about there is a less pay to performance linkages, and then the organizational managers, the government officials, they sought to decentralize personnel systems. Reason is they have insufficient authority over various HRM practices, including pay, discipline the employees and other managerial responsibility, right? Because mostly the recruitment and the pay related aspects, or the career related aspect, and promotions and discipline related aspect are all centralized in the public sector organization, so which gives less scope for the organizational managers and leaders, public organizational managers and leaders, lesser control over their employees. So when they don't have much of the control, they have to look for other ways how they will do to what they will do to motivate their employees in the organization. That we will specifically discuss in module number 8, wherein we talk about the concept of public sector motivation, right? If you don't have control over pay, if you don't have control over resources, what are the kind of mechanisms which public organizational managers can use to motivate their individuals, right? Literature says that in public sector managers, among public sector managers, pay, incentives, they are not much of the motivator factors for people to get motivated to work on. What works with these people are the sense of accomplishment, achievement, self-esteem, meaningful work, right? And their engagement with the kind of work they are doing, they are going to be the contributing factors. So when we will start discussion on module 8 as far as public service motivation aspect is concerned, then I'll talk about more details about this, right? Now, because these reasons exist, because public managers don't have much of the control on these particular people in the organization. So the aspect of motivation in public sector organization become challenging, right? Now, if you look at the structures, rules and procedures in the public sector organization, they are imposed from the external body. Look at civil services rules governing personnel management systems, wherein we talk about pay, discipline and training. They're all centrally made, and then they are imposed on these government agencies by the external bodies. So when they don't have much of a control in that particular context, how they will try to motivate individuals in the organization, right? Another important factor which also is a differentiating character of public sector organization, which is differentiating them from their private sector organization, is the impact of external political climate. If we look at the in general public attitude towards the government and public employees, it is largely negative, because they feel that the public organizations systems, they are ineffective systems, and the public employees who are providing the services, who are working in public organizations, they are ineffective. They consider it to be very delayed process they follow to do the work. There is a concept of there is a perception of red tapeism, and the citizens sometimes they have to experience administrative burdens to get the access of the policies and the benefits of the policy programs. So they largely have a very negative attitude towards the employees. Now, what is the consequence of this? The consequence of this is that they have low morale. Public organization employees, they have low morale, right? Or if first of all anything that goes wrong in the organization and the people have some kind of issue against the government agency for their services or their programs or the efforts that are indulging in, first of all, who should be questioned in the organization? It becomes the part of employees aspect, right? They will be held accountable for this. So one reason is, no matter how hard they work, whenever something goes wrong, the accountability lies with the people who are actually providing the access to services. So when public's opinion is largely negative, there is something which is going on with the minds of the public sector organization employees, which is that no matter how hard they try, there is something which is going to not work for them, and consequently they have low morale for enhancing their performance in the organization, right? So this is how the context of the public sector organization is little different from the private sector organization, and that's how we need to see that how motivation is a kind of challenge in the public sector organization. Now, I am not anywhere saying that public sector organization only have challenges. The challenges are also with the private sector organizations too, but they confront the challenges which are way different from the public sector organization. Perhaps in private sector organization, they are more profit oriented organizations, so largely their focus is on profit maximization. They are not, and their accountability is limited. Their accountability is not huge, right? Because they are largely profit oriented organization, and the focus is on the customers. They want to increase the customer satisfaction, and their employee development focus, which is focusing on enhancing the performance of the people in the organization so that they can enhance the satisfaction of the customer. So they will face these challenges related to these particular aspects, which are very, very limited in scope with respect to the kind of business they are doing. On the other hand, if you look at the public sector organization, their scope of activities in terms of reach of the public policies and the programs and the services they are providing to the citizens and the kind of functioning they are doing, this much broader in scope, which pose different kind of challenges for public sector organization, largely because of the external influence on public sector organizations, right? I hope the difference is clear to all of you. After now understanding of the context of motivation, let's look into the concept of motivation. What is the meaning of motivation, right? It has been described in literature in various ways. Various researchers, depending upon the kind of framework that they have proposed, they have tried to define motivation in the various different types. Now, in simple terms, motivation is about set of forces within which within or outside, which lead people to behave in particular ways and towards attainment of goals. I'll tell you what kind of set of forces I'm talking about, internal forces, or they are actually influenced because of some kind of external factors. So these are some kind of set of forces which lead people to behave in a particular way and towards attainment of the goal, right? See, why organization wants people to behave in a particular way? Because the entire focus is on performance enhancement among the people, right? So we want people in the organization to direct their efforts and channelize their efforts towards the performance outcomes, and to do that they have to show and express the kind of behaviors which are required by the organization from the people in the organization so that they perform really well, right? So there are set of forces which work. For some people, these set of forces lies outside. They need always some kind of external stimulus, external situational factors such as rewards or pay or working conditions, which will then lead them to behave in a particular way, or some kind of threat that they are facing in the environment and they have to behave in particular way. On the other hand, there are some people, for them the external factor doesn't matter. For them it is internal. Internal means they actually get motivated from the work itself that they want to do. Work gives them a lot of meaning. For instance, if somebody, let's take an example of a teacher, and the teacher get immense satisfaction from bringing change in the life of his or her students. So this particular work, teaching the students, which is a noble course, it is giving the teacher a lot of satisfaction. So that teacher is not relying on any kind of external factors which are there to motivate her or him. They actually get motivation, they get they derive their motivation from their work itself. So they experiment with new way of teaching, they experiment with new pedagogical methods, they try to be more creative and innovative in the way they want to teach and ensure that transfer of learning is effective. So these people, they derive motivation from within, wherein on the other hand there are people who will derive motivation from the external factors that we will look into when we'll start looking at the various frameworks. So in simple terms, motivation is set of forces that lead people to behave in particular ways towards attainment of goals, right? Work motivation, if you look at, see here we talk about, see in this case we can also talk about the concept of human motivation, which is in general irrespective of whether they are working in organizations or not, right? It is broadly is a concept of psychology. Wherein we talk about work motivation, it largely have been extensively studied in the literature of organizational psychology / organizational behavior, right? But in this particular module, in this theme, the focus is on understanding work motivation, right? Work motivation refers to the person's desire to work hard and work well, right? Work hard and work well. Now, what is the difference between work hard and work well? Let's look into these factors. First of all, let's talk about intensity. When we talk about the work hard, intensity in efforts, level of efforts, that how much you are putting in terms of efforts to get the work done, how hard you are trying in terms of getting your work done, level of the efforts, which is called as intensity. Then direction of efforts, you should be putting in the efforts in the right direction, like focus, in which direction employee is channeling the efforts. It should not be the case that you are putting in efforts but you are not very sure where to put the efforts. You please see, when we discuss about the concept of goals, effective goals in the organization performance, right, we talked about this thing, right? To achieve the goals, there are certain means that has to be followed, right? People should know there is where their means are leading them to, because goals if are clear, the people can then start channelizing their efforts toward them. So goals also give the motivation to people, which we will look into when we will review the framework of goal setting theory, right? So direction, in which direction, which is a focus, the employee is channeling the effort, is the second very important aspect of work motivation, right? Then third is persistence. How long an employee can sustain the efforts, how hard and you continue to try even if you face adversities. Like in case of failure, do you give up or you continue to put in efforts? So that is talking about the concept of persistence. how an employee can sustain the efforts, continue to put in efforts until or unless that person reaches the end goal or the performance, right? So three things they together they describe the concept of work motivation. So work motivation is all about the intensity, direction and persistence of efforts that lead people toward the attainment of the goals and then hence their performance, right? I hope the thing is clear. Motivation is set of forces that lead people to behave in particular ways. Work motivation on the other hand is talking about, if we talk about within the context of the work, it's about intensity, direction and persistence of efforts for the attainment of overall goals for individuals and the organization. Let's look at, because we talked about performance is very, very important and crucial, we need to see what is the relationship between motivation and performance. So we say that if you look into the text by Griffin and Moorhead, Organizational Behavior, Managing People and Organization, they define performance is a function of motivation, ability and environment. Okay, where P stands for performance, M stands for motivation, A stands for ability and E stands for environment. Performance is a function of motivation, somebody's ability and of course the environment, right? So if people are able to do their work, they know how to do their work, their self-efficacy is high, meaning that given a piece of work or task, they have full confidence that they will be able to complete that work being given to them. So there is high ability, right? Then comes the environmental factors. The environmental factors can be anything, the kind of working conditions that the people encounter, the kind of support that they are getting from their superiors or the kind of support they are getting from their colleagues, right? Then there are pay, incentives and other structures which will lead them to perform in a different way. So environment is there, right? Then something is to do with motivation. What is the motivation level among the people, right? So these all things come together to help individuals enhance the performance of the organization. Let's say if the work environment is not good, what will happen? The performance will go down. If ability is not there, again performance will go down. Motivation is not there, performance will not be that great, right? So this particular aspect talks here about that performance is a function of somebody's motivation level, their ability and the kind of environment they are working in, right? Then let's look into some of the important aspects related to the measurement of the work motivation. As I have mentioned that various researchers in literatures, they have tried to define the concept of motivation in different ways and hence the measurement. So first come the conceptual definition, that how motivation has been understood, and then comes the construct to measure. There is a difference between concept and a construct. Concept is the theoretical understanding, meaning of the particular concept, for example motivation in this case, or we can take an example of leadership. And depending upon the definition, different authors have worked on the construct. Constructs are the measurement tools with the help of which one can measure some phenomena, for example in this case motivation, right? Now in case of motivation, there are various constructs which are available to assess the motivation level, right? One of them is job motivation. So all these various motivation tools are mentioned in the text of Rene, Fernandez and Malatesta, Understanding and Managing Public Organization. You can review them there also. In case of job motivation, this particular aspect of the construct measure the hard work being done by employees, how much work they are doing in terms of the efforts they are putting in. So it talks about the efforts, hard work and efforts. In case of work motivation, it is about somebody's engagement and involvement in the work, right? If somebody is interested in putting in more efforts, more than which is required, can they stay back for the extra hours? Do they find themselves to be completely immersed in their work? Means that they are not thinking of anything else, their work gives them a lot of motivation, right? I have given you an example of teaching as a profession. For some teachers, that they derive a lot of satisfaction from their work, that they engage in the kind of behaviors which defines their motivational level, even if there are no external stimuli available there, right? There is something called as intrinsic motivation, like within. There are forces within. For example, work can also give some kind of motivation to people because I am indulging into some kind of interesting work, right? So this can also give me some kind of motivation because I see that I am contributing towards an interesting work. Let us look at public organization. When public managers, they encounter challenging situation and they see that by putting in the effort and the kind of work they are doing, which is directly leading to a social cause, right? And when they see that outcome which they are going to get from the efforts that they are putting in and the kind of work outcome they are going to achieve by taking care of the social issues and solving the problems of the people, it gives them immense satisfaction, right? Then there is reward expectancy, that people, they get motivated because they expect the rewards in return of their efforts, right? So we'll see that when they put hard efforts in something, that there is some kind of expectancy which is there for them to put in hard efforts, right? If the rewards are good, they value those rewards, they will put in more efforts. If it is not, they will not. And then something is also to do with peer evaluation. Sometimes people say that people will always talk how high about their work efforts, that how hard they are trying, they will also talk good about it, their motivation level. So there could also be peer evaluation where we can ask people in the same group of people who are working together, asking about others' motivational levels. How? Because people are observing others, so they know that how much people are putting in hard effort and trying, and they also know about their willingness to put in action. So we can ask these people, the peers who are working with somebody, to ask about their motivational levels. So we will continue this discussion in the next session.